Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Pelican, built tough for all situations. Go to pelican.com. Yak Gadget, for all your fine kayak fishing accessory needs. Go to yakgadget.com. Eastport Marina, on the beautiful shores of Dale Hollow Lake. For all your lodging, kayaking, and fishing needs, go to eastport.info. Now let's get this show started.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Bass Fishing for Noobs here on the Paddle and Fin Podcast. I am your host, Sean Lavery, and I'd like to welcome everybody back to the podcast tonight. I know the title of the show is Bass Fishing for Noobs, but every once in a while we like to take a little break from that. And tonight, my guest is going to be kind of a shot that way. We'll still cover some bass fishing because he's got a lot of great knowledge. And someone who, when I first started learning how to fish, was someone who I watched a lot of. You guys heard me last week talking about the show that he used to do. We'll get into that a little bit as well. But right off the bat, I want to introduce my guest tonight, Mr. Don Goff. So welcome to the Paddle and Fin Noob Show, Don, and thanks for coming on this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. So I know who you are, but I would guess a lot of our listeners probably don't. So why don't you let them know who you are and where you're from, and maybe a little bit about how you got into fishing and kind of your history a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, I actually just a local fisherman. I'm from Havity Grace. Started fishing in a very challenging time in my life when I needed fishing to really help me get through things. You know, I think a lot of people seek fishing for those reasons. So that's how I started to really seek it beyond just a hobby. It really became a passion to keep me balanced. And, it was in a time in my life where I had loss. I had lost, my son. So it helped me cope and get through life in a very special way that no person, being, or even work could get in the way from, because it just kept me whole. So from that point, and about 2011 on, I really just tried to, seek a lot of balance in life and learn as much as I could. And I really just promised myself that I would, live my life in a way that I would do whatever it took to make it work and still be happy. And I really found that balance, and fishing, I took all the way. I became a guide. I got on social media. I had a following of 50,000 people over 5 social networks. I've done a lot of videos with John Toast Oast back in the day. And I started when Facebook Live first started, it got a real good ping. So I realized that, corporate was pushing that. So I kind of, really tuned into that. So it helped me get more followers faster because they were allowing more people to see it through Facebook. I just took advantage of that. That one thing led to another. And then all of a sudden I thought I could fish for a living, which was far from the truth. I did it for 4 years, and I didn't work for anybody else. I had to work side jobs. Lo and behold, my side job ended up being my real job to this day, but I still fish. It's a lot of fun. And, I just go out with friends. I don't promote anymore. I don't guide anymore, but I don't have a problem, on any given Sunday, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. So, to start off, that's something we talk about on this show a lot, the therapeutic values of fishing and kayak fishing in particular. That connection of being so close to the water and just being out in nature, and how so many people who struggle with all sorts of things, find a relief in that. And, I encourage anybody who is struggling with any kind of things to kind of search out that outlet and give it a try, because I feel like it can be, just a freeing and, super therapeutic experience for anybody who's really struggling. So that's cool that you got to share that. So
And it goes both ways, Sean. You could do it for yourself in solitude, but really fishing can be a very social thing too. You can
Absolutely.
really open yourself up to others and start to trust people in a different way that you never knew you could before, because when you're out in the water and that perfect experience happens that you can never duplicate, it becomes a bonding moment. And it's that the therapy there is beyond, Sigmund Freud. It's simply just the way life should be. And that's when you have that dawning moment that this is what you really are about and this is what you like to do.
Amen, brother. Yeah, for sure. And I think you're exactly right. I've met so many amazing people that otherwise I wouldn't have a clue even existed. And it's definitely been a blessing to meet, so many amazing people just in the short amount of time that I've been, in the kayaking community and the fishing community in general. So I can definitely echo those sentiments for sure. So
yeah, it's a blast. I know it's cliche, but it's definitely a way of life. It's a little different. But I know you had some fishing questions, so if I can help you
Absolutely.
guys with that,
Yep.
I'm happy to.
So I wanted to give you let the folks know where I first saw you, and that was when you kind of worked with the Susquehanna River Fishing Club, and you used to do a show called the Power Hour. And I was telling my guests about that last week. How I remember I put you on the way to work and kind of live vicariously through you being out on the water as I was heading to work and wishing I was out there. And we were talking about the top toad last week, and that was the first place I ever heard of anybody throwing that. And I remember reaching out to you and asking you some questions about the kind of gear you were using, and you were super helpful to me. Just let me know, what you're using and, kind of why you were using it. And that's kind of what kind of got me started. And now, lo and behold, I'm doing my own show. So definitely, kind of influenced me in that. So, but I guess I know what, like I said in the beginning of the show, we're usually talking about bass fishing. But one of the reasons I reached out to Don was because I knew that he did a lot of snakehead fishing too, and maybe even some guiding for snakehead fishing. And I thought that might be an interesting topic to talk about, because while bass fishing is fun, I heard snakehead fishing can be a total blast, that they can be a beast of a fish to fight and catch. And they're definitely a toothy critter. So you got to, be on the lookout for that. I've seen some plastic frogs and stuff that got absolutely murdered by snakeheads. So, but yeah, I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit about that, see what, what and what, where someone could get started if that was something they wanted to go and try and target.
I'd say actually it's an awesome fish for a beginner fisherman, for the simple reason that they're accessible to just about anybody that doesn't have a bass boat. So if you're a kayak fisherman, if you're a shore fisherman, and especially if you're a Maryland fisherman, there's a lot of marsh and there's a lot of shallow water. And it seems like the snakeheads over the last 30 years have really taken over, and all those areas that they like best, which would be, a really mushy, shallow area. I would have to say 95% of the big snakes I pull out of the water that are at least 10 pounds are in 6 inches of water.
Wow.
So the fact of the matter is if you target stinky, dirty, gross, shallow, hot, nasty, with lots of weeds, like you can never think a fish would live in there, you're going to find them. And it's just really good for a beginner fisherman, because I'd say in the next 10 years, you're really going to start to see that you could probably just get them on shore pretty much with ease anywhere on the, east side and west side for sure.
Okay.
So, yeah, they're very abundant, and if you know how to fish the weed line or the weeds themselves, it's all about not getting snagged. So the more times you can throw that frog without having a clump of grass on it, or any lure for that matter, in 6 inches of water, then your chances are going to greatly increase. Because if that lure is not in the water, you have no chance.
That's true. That is definitely true. Your percentage obviously goes way, way up the more time your bait's in the water. So,
Yeah, and there's no real trick to them. I mean, if you're a bass fisherman, you can catch them on anything a bass will bite on, but they really like that super, super shallow, high cover, and that's all they need. And they really don't even need 6 inches. I've caught them way back in the reeds and 3 inches of water, and it's wild. They're pretty aggressive. So when it's time to feed, they will, but you got to be in the right place at the right time. And you just want to be right in that I always say 6 inches to about 2 foot is probably perfect.
so I would think in 6 inches, it'd almost be that their backs would be out of the water. Are you like sight fishing for them, or are you kind of just casting in those general areas?
A little bit of both. I mean, a lot of times, depending on when they're spawning, I might be sight fishing based on their fry balls, and that's about it.
Okay.
Otherwise, you just target these zones, and they kind of lay low and they lay still, and they're ambush predators, just like bass. So you don't really have to look for them. Just have to keep, casting in a radius that you can cover 5 foot spans in a cone, and then move down, and then 5 foot in a cone and move down. You can do it from a boat, canoe, kayak, or it really doesn't matter. But just targeting those areas is what's going to happen. Now, if you do see a fry ball, target the fry ball because the mom and dad, they actually protect the babies, and you
Okay.
could have a chance to catch two back to back because they will attack if they are in the protection mode. They will actually circle the fry ball, and you'll be able to pick them up pretty
Okay.
easily. I've guided a few guys, and we would go sight fishing for fry balls, and I can almost get the customer on the fish just by targeting the balls.
Okay.
And the balls, they'll get a little deeper, but normally you can find them. It's still very relative to where you're going to find the mom and dad.
And what time of year would you be looking for fry balls? So they spawn the same kind of times bass do, or is that something like different or different times a year?
So I've been targeting them since 2015. And just in my experience since then, I feel like the snakeheads are spawning every 2 or 3 months.
Wow. Okay.
And it seems like, and I think scientifically, if I might be proven wrong on this, but it seems like with my hours that I've spent out there, that they're kind of hosting the fry for at least the first 4 weeks of their life. So until those fry turn from this color red to the actual snakehead boa constrictor pattern,
Mm-hmm.
that's about when the parents stop guarding them. It doesn't mean that they're still not fried up. Just means I think that's when they finally let go. But within another month or two, you're going to find, in my experience, another set of fry ball this color. So
Okay.
it feels like to me they're spawning in cycles of about 2 or 3 times from May till October or November. So
Wow.
that's
Okay.
that's once a quarter around here once it gets warm.
Interesting. And I didn't realize the fry were red. So that seems like that would be something that would stand out pretty good and be somewhat easy to spot.
Yeah, if you've ever been to Petco and you've seen the rosy reds that you feed your Oscars,
Mm-hmm.
they actually look like rosy reds.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're very orange. I got a couple of videos I could send you just to show you the different stages of life, in my own hands, because they're
Okay.
really easy to net. You can just net them, a kayak right up to them, scoop them up,
Wow.
and
Okay.
it
Interesting.
was a great day because you caught 100 snakeheads in one catch.
That's the way to do it, I guess, if you're going for numbers. So,
Yeah, and so I'm still in the running, I guess.
well, there you go. Yeah, most snakeheads ever caught. Right.
Yeah, I've never really caught any monsters. Other over 13 pounds is my biggest one.
That
So,
still
but
sounds ginormous to me, but
Yeah, but I'm trying. I'm looking for that state record. It's like 22 and a half, 23, something like that.
I can't
And
imagine the sleigh ride that's going to take you on, but
well, I'm in the right place, I think. I've been targeting the same area twice a year abroad since 2015.
okay.
And the biggest one I caught was in my backyard. So I drive in 4 hours. And the biggest one I caught's right here in off Route 40.
Okay. I haven't been down there to fish as much. I'd like to get down there more. I used to crab down that way with my stepdad, but I've never fished down there a ton because my stepdad always wanted to go crabbing. So the time that I have spent down in the Havre de Grace area and down there has definitely been more crabbing than anything. But
yeah, and it's really not just Havre de Grace. I'm not trying to blow up that spot because it's a lot of water up there in the flats. It's
yeah.
every tributary from Havre de Grace to Baltimore City.
Okay.
And there is no bad spot as long as you're in that target zone and it's nasty, stinky water. You're going to find them. Yeah, I promise you, you will find them, but they're not the easiest catch in the world. And a lot of probably are bowfin fans.
Mm-hmm.
And a bowfin's, a very special catch. You don't usually just nail them all day long. Snakeheads are very similar in their behavior, and it is special. They are not easy to hook. You need to learn the techniques for landing them. You might hook one, but landing them's a whole nother thing.
Okay. And then is there anything you can share about that? Like that goes into that once you think you got one hooked, what are some of those techniques?
Well, typically we will set the hook multiple times before we even think we have them. So,
Okay.
you're literally wrenching back on your rod like you setting the hook for the first time every 6 seconds for the first 2 or 3 yanks. Then you pull them in. So then you probably have pierced their bony plate in their mouth at that point. And even then, it's not secure. So you just try to get them in there fast and put them in the net. That's the best I can tell you. And don't lip them.
Yeah.
Teeth. But you're going to have to pry their jaws open and get that lure out of there somehow. A lot of people have different techniques. There's a lot of tools out there.
Okay.
There's some guys on the Eastern Shore that have patented some like jaw breakers, jaw spreaders, things like that.
Okay.
Probably find their tools if you just probably look on Facebook or Google, Eastern Shore snakeheads, etc. But you got to hold their mouth open while keeping them in the net while removing the hook.
That does sound like an adventure, but
if you take them out of the net, they do a thing we call going zombie.
okay.
So they will act like they're out of juice. They'll act like they're dead. And I'm not kidding you, 5 minutes later, when you're trying to get this hook out of their bony plate, they will reanimate, jump out of the boat, and smack you in the face with their tail. It happens over and over and over again.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
just keep them in the net, keep them twisted in there, and just kind of work with their face. And if you're going to keep them, great. If you're going to take a picture, great. If it's not illegal to let them go where you caught them, if you're going to let them go, great. It's just whatever you want to do. Just they're going to go zombie on you. They're going to reanimate. So keep them in the net until you're ready for your Kodak moment, I guess.
Yeah. That's interesting. And do you usually carry like fish grips and stuff with you so you can handle them for pictures and that kind of thing?
I always have all my tools, and it's pretty much the only fish I exclusively target most of the year. Right now, I fish for shad because it's kind of old school and brings me back to my roots. But usually, I'm going snakehead fishing, and I'll get lucky and catch a bass or you name it. We do like some bass openers in some Baltimore County lakes and things like that in early April before the snakes start biting. But once May hits, that's all I really care to go for. It's perfect for the environment I like to put myself in, and I'm a kayaker.
Yep.
So that's really my favorite fish.
Okay. Is there any special lures that you use, or do you just pretty much just throw bass lures or bigger bass lures, or
Well,
anything in particular?
I think you mentioned it earlier. I honestly, all my friends and a lot of the other guys, they like to carry multiple things, try multiple things, and pretty much every bass lure works. But I'm the type of guy that just goes out there with a top toad all day.
Okay.
I won't switch it up at all. I'll be patient. I'll wait for that top water strike because there's nothing like it. And it's going to take a lot for me to stop throwing that lure because that's probably all I ever fish always.
Okay.
So it's the only thing that tickles my fancy, you know.
Hey, we were just talking about the love of topwater explosions and frog fishing last week on our show. So, I don't think you have to explain that away at all, because it's definitely something, once it happens, you get addicted to. And I can definitely see why that's something you try to target and repeat, because that is a fun time. I'm sure if it's anything like a bass blow up, I mean, it just sounds awesome. So, and that,
Yeah.
and the environment where you're describing about where these fish are, sounds like frog heaven as well. So it makes sense why that would be a productive lure for you to use and be throwing in those areas.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I will change up my game depending on the species. I don't mind fishing other things. I'm more of I'm very much a power fisherman. As long as I'm active, I'll crank. I'll do top water all day. I'll pop. Crankbaits are nice. I mean, cheddar baits. And I don't do a lot of finesse. But
Mhm.
if my buddy Josh next to me is catching them on the finesse, then I might just borrow one from him just so I can catch as much fish.
There you go. There you go.
No, not proud.
Well, yeah, some people, I mean, live and die by the power. And like I like to say, I'm a little, I'm not afraid to throw either. I started off with finesse just because that's kind of what I felt more comfortable with. But as I've learned, I've grown to like cranking and some of the more power stuff as well. I still don't know that I'm as good about or with it as finesse. I feel like for some reason I tend to still do better with finesse, but I'm definitely not opposed to the power game at all. When it works, I like cranking and that kind of thing. So definitely, we'll take whatever I can get. Whatever's catching fish is what I'll keep doing if I can. But is there anything else you would say to someone who's going to target snakehead that they should know? I know we talked about equipment. What kind of line do you generally use, or does it matter? I know with the teeth, that's obviously, there's not a lot of line that's going to hold up to getting chomped through. But is there anything better than another, or anything you'd recommend there?
Just a higher abrasion line. It depends on, if you're frog fishing, you're probably going to go for a heavier pound test and most likely not a mono. I would probably go with braid. That's all I ever use. And if
Okay.
you're frogging with all the weeds and such, most likely a 30-pound braid or 15 at minimal.
Okay.
You really want to cast a thin braid, obviously in a bait caster. It's not made for it. So you need a high diameter or a thicker diameter. And the high abrasion really helps with the teeth. But, that's part of it because you're in the grass. And the other part is because of their teeth. But really, moral of the story is have a net. If you don't have a net, you're probably not going to land the fish because of their teeth and their ferocity. They're
Okay.
pretty wild, but high abrasion, high pound tests.
And are you generally making like super long casts and kind of, or are they kind of like a more spooky fish, or will they hang out and let you get pretty much right next to them? And it's often the strikes are right there next to the boat, or how's that work?
It's anywhere, everywhere. I've had them hit next to the boat. I cast out 70 yards probably on average if I'm winging it, and I'm bringing this in, and they're hitting in all ranges. So what you end up doing is if you cone the area, you might find some sort of trend. They might be biting closer to the boat, which means they're probably not in the 6-inch range, might be a little hot. So they might be in the 18-inch or they might be in the 24-inch range.
Okay.
All are within the strike zone because the
Right.
fish see it and the water clarity, etc. So shallow.
Right. Okay. So just pay attention to kind of where they're hitting, how far from the boat, and that'll give you a good clue, maybe where they're trending. And
Yeah, it
maybe
helps
you
to
can.
guess, right? And on
Yeah.
the kayak, you don't necessarily have a lot of equipment. If you're a minimalist, you're probably doing it because it's an affordable sport. So not, the guys that go out and deck all their stuff out aren't necessarily pro. They might be obsessive, but you need all
I
that.
may or may not fall into that category. My kayak looks sometimes like a Bass Pro Shop, but I definitely there's times where I long to be more simpler, but then I'm like, well, what if something is biting and I don't have that?
And my first kayak had all the gadgets, believe me.
um, okay, well, I think that that's a pretty good coverage. I think. Is there any other places in the country, like off the top of your head, where I know? So one thing I was going to ask you is, what is the perception of snakeheads down there? Are like up here in PA, they're not quite they can't get past the Conowingo Dam, I think, for the most part, is what they're saying. So, like everybody always jokes, oh, the snakeheads are coming, they're going to be here, and they're going to ruin the whole fishery, that kind of thing. Even my local lake, on the Facebook group, there's I saw somebody catch a snakehead, the whole lake's going to be, completely trashed, Is there any, like, what's the connotation with snakeheads down, in your area?
I don't know. It's a mixed feel. You have a lot of sportsmen here that welcome it, and you have a lot of conservationists that fear it, and you have a lot of scientists that understand the facts, and you have a lot of people that just heard of it. So it's very new. I think a lot of what's going on is hearsay and rumors. I tend to really just dabble with the facts and science and
Mm-hmm.
try not to overwhelm myself with telling everybody I'm right. I don't really know. They don't really know. It's just too early to tell. Um, when a shocking boat, for instance, goes out and collects data on fish, the radius is only so big. They're not shocking every fish in the river or
Right.
the bay or the ocean. So they're only collecting the data what they can find. The data is only as reliable as the findings. And
Right.
typically time will tell.
I always tell people, they said the same thing about catfish on the Susquehanna, and some people say that the catfish are kind of ruining the fishery, and yeah, I kind of feel like that while that may be true to some extent, it's definitely adding some biodiversity to the river, and for me, the more different types of fish you can catch, that's just going to help fishing in general. But I can definitely see where people would be concerned. But that you see things like, oh, if you catch a snakehead, you better kill it. You have to kill it, and that's not true. There's no rule that says that you have to. There's definitely
That's correct.
People who release them, and people who enjoy fishing for them and want to keep fishing for them and not totally eradicate them. But so I just like to get that angle out there that just don't trust everything that you read. Just do a little research before you totally jump to conclusions, because there's all sorts of views out there, and just try and keep a level head about everything that you're seeing. So
yeah, and the only facts I can really give you are the ones that I've seen for myself. And point being, I've caught 5 snakeheads next to 5 bass before. I mean, it's true. And I know that these fish are preying on the native species, but the facts say invasives are invasives. We could be endangering ourselves, but honestly, there's nothing we can do at this point. They have clutches of 20,000 babies 3 times a year, it seems like. If 1% makes it through, that's 600 new fish per couple per year. And if I'm catching, on a good day, 15, 20 snakeheads, I think it doesn't really matter at this point. There's not much you can do.
Right. You're barely scratching the surface. So, and
Sure. So
I've read too that bass can eat their fry as well, and so I mean, to me, it just adds to the circle that's there. But we'll see what happens. It definitely could potentially become where most fisheries are snakehead fisheries, and not as much bass. But
and the local birds, and the rockfish, I watch them dive on those fry balls all year long. They definitely eat those big orange babies. I mean, they have no camo. They're right there in the open. They're feeder fish. So
right.
it's hard to say decimation, but it's history doesn't lie. So it's probably not a good formula for our waters. However, we still don't know.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that covers Snakehead pretty well. We're about a half hour in, so I wanted to just pick your brain real quick because I know you also, when I fell in love with watching you do the Power Hour, I think you were mostly targeting bass at that point. And, I've fallen in love with fishing the river. And so I always like to get as much tips and stuff as I can about fishing the river. So if you were taking a noob fishing, someone who is relatively new to the sport, and you were taking them out on the river, what would you target? What would you put in their hands that you think would be easy for them to pick up? I know last week like I said, we were talking frogging. We were talking frogging, all sorts of different kinds of frogs. And I was telling my host, my friend Jimmy, who's also a host of one of the other shows here on Paddle and Fin, that you were catching smallies on the top toad in the middle of the Susquehanna, and he's like, I would never even thought to throw a toad there, and I was like, hey, it worked for him. And then I started doing it and it worked for me too. And but I was just curious if, like I said, if you were going to take someone out who was new, what would you put in their hands that you think would make them successful pretty easily?
On the river?
Yeah.
So the river is a fickle beast, but if you were brand new, the first thing I would give you is something that you couldn't snag. So my MO for catching fish is all about cast count. So anything that isn't going to get snagged up in the rocks, the more you're throwing something, the less you're tying on, or the less you're losing something. So you need to really throw something that's not going to get hung up. The bass out there bite like the bass in a pond in your backyard. You just got to really optimize your success chances out there by not getting everything you throw wedged in the rocks. So I would discourage a finesse fisherman that has a weighted bottom that could get really just pinned up. It's so rocky. So that's kind of how the river works. In the flats, it's different. It's all weeds. But it's still the same premise. No matter where we're fishing, I'm going to throw something in a newbie's hands that allow them to fish freely with the most opportunity to catch something. And if they got to learn how to jig, or they got to learn how to finesse, or they got to learn anything other than casting and retrieving, they probably won't have a good time.
So what would you like? Specific lures, what would you put in their hands? Like what falls under your snag free kind of are you talking like a go ahead?
Yeah, no, it's easy. Anything, if you're if you like to buy your lures commercially at like a Dick's Sporting Goods or a Walmart, or any or even your local tackle shop, if you just look on the labels and you look at something enticing, match the hatch, minnow's a minnow, a frog's a frog. There's so many lures out there, but they're all just fishing frogs and worms and hellgrammites, right? So you really just want to look at the label, and you want to pick something in the 0 to 3 foot range. That would be the best thing to do in the river. Now, there are different parts of the river. If you happen to go into a deeper part of the river, you would just pick something where you know the depth and try to optimize with at least some clearance from the bottom. You just don't want to go on the bottom. So jerk baits will work really good, like the shadow wrap. Top water, like poppers, are very amazing out there. And, anything else that you can think of. Soft plastics, paddle tails, the light jig head, very simple bait with a shad body. Just anything that isn't going to hit the bottom.
Yeah, that was and you're exactly right about that. When I first started fishing the river, that was one of the things that frustrated me so much was how often I got snagged. And it's weird now that I kind of know what I'm doing and where to cast. What part of like when you throw into an eddy, you throw into the slow part of an eddy, it's not going to snag as quick because it's not just sitting there dragging against the bottom. It can sit there in that slow moving water and not be scraping against the bottom and necessarily getting snagged up, although it still happens for sure. But it definitely was a point of frustration for me when I first started. And that's why like things like the top toad and stuff on top, definitely made it easier because you can throw that with a lot less frustration. Now I didn't have as much luck with that initially as either because I didn't understand to fish eddies and to fish, those, current seams and stuff like that. I was just kind of out there blind fan casting. And I did pick up fish occasionally, but definitely once I started learning what to look for and where to kind of target, my percentages went up a lot.
Yeah. Even if you are a finesse fisherman, as long as you're staying off the bottom, you're fine. So maybe a weightless worm I've had a lot of success with back in maybe 2016. I used to just take a trick worm from Zoom, put a worm hook, make it weedless, and just let it naturally float and just jig it. It takes a few seconds in a current for it to flow to the bottom. So you end up getting a lot of good results from that for smallmouth bass up there too.
Oh yeah. And generally, like when you're fishing the river, color wise, I find that, stuff with chartreuse tends to work well for me. I don't know if that's necessarily, true for everyone, but a lot of times what I'll throw, I tend to throw something with either chartreuse tipped or even, a majority of chartreuse color on it. And I tend to do pretty well. I didn't know if that was your experience at all.
Oh, absolutely. Chartreuse is a great color up there, but it typically works best, in my opinion, when the water is stained. I think that's why it has so much success, because it is typically muddy and stained. It doesn't run clear until they stop running a lot of generation out of the dam. So, that color does pretty well, I believe, just for that simple fact.
And I know like top toad color, you threw a white, I believe, a lot. And that's kind of what I generally throw on the river anyway. Jimmy was saying he likes the top toad in black down where he is in Alabama. But I have a feeling both would probably work pretty well.
Well, you tell Jimmy I use both white and black. If they're not biting on white, they're biting on black.
No, Jimmy was actually almost mad at me because I mentioned that because he's like, down here, not everybody knows about the top toad, but I guess they probably will now. So it is
amazing.
a special bait for sure. So
yeah, it's definitely my go-to, and it doesn't. I don't think it will ever wear the fish out. It's a pretty special strike. You got to be really good at it, and a lot of people don't target the right areas with it. It's just once you own it, you love it, and it only takes a couple big fish to really sell you on one lure,
Oh yeah, heck yeah, especially the way they nail it. So something about watching that guy disappear. That
and any of the newbies that try it, they're gonna have to learn how to set the hook with it because it is a little bit different.
Yep, we actually talked about that a little bit last week, and that how hard that is to learn and to be patient, and let that time elapse a little bit. Let that fish kind of get the whole thing in its mouth before you lay into them. So
yeah, it's wonderful. It's the best. I wouldn't trade it for any other strike.
Amen, man. I'm telling you, it's definitely what keeps people coming back to it for sure. So
That's great.
Don, any other tips you would give, just general for river fishing that you've learned over the years? Anything like you found yourself telling your customers on regularly, or that any mistakes you saw them making regularly that you can think of off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head, but my number one concern would be with safety. You guys, there's a lot of rocks out there. If you're fishing below the dam, you need to be very cognizant and call the hotline. Make sure you know what the generation schedule is, so you don't put yourself in danger. It's really not for novice fishing most of the time in a river. It's very much about awareness, and you have to be very comfortable in your kayak and in your surroundings, just for safety reasons. So if you're not really, really comfortable, just make sure that you're with somebody that is, wear your life jacket, and be safe, because going out in the river is like chasing mavericks, man. That's not something normal people do. They would rather just go out in the flat, calm area and catch a bass or two, and that be it. The river's not like that. It's more of a challenge. It's a very big challenge. It's like surfing the big wave. Honestly, you need to be very, very, very careful.
And I think one thing, you said, kind of always being aware of your surroundings. I've heard it said, like, keep your head on a swivel, and definitely, because when you're floating with the current, you can come up on those rocks quick, and especially the rocks that you see are the easy ones, but the rocks that are just under the surface that all you can see from a ways away is just a slight ripple where they are. But when you're right up on top of them, man, they can get you quick. So
Yeah.
I definitely think that's a good tip. So definitely,
Yep.
especially for the people who are new to fishing the river from the shore, it may look like it's just a gentle flow out there, but when you get out in it, you can be booking pretty fast, and it can be way quicker than you expect. So like you said, I know down around you can call that hotline and find out when the dam is discharging, and that kind of thing. So if you guys, anybody listening, have dams in their area, that would definitely be something to look into. I know there's tons of apps that you can use as well. I think on one of our other shows this week that's airing, we talk a lot about they're gonna, on the final cast, they're gonna talk about fishing apps. So make sure you check out that, because there are apps that tell you the flow of the rivers by you. I use that app every time I go out, just to see the river level and what the flow is like. And you can tell just by the numbers sometimes, oh, it's just probably not fit to be out. Like right now up by me, the Susquehanna is just chugging. It's not even really paddable at this point. So definitely that's something to keep in mind. And if you have any doubts at all, make sure you go with somebody, and you also are prepared for whatever situations you're going to find, because the river, as awesome as it is, can also be super dangerous if you don't respect it. So
Yeah, if it's your first maiden voyage in your new kayak and you've never kayaked before, go for it. But maybe you shouldn't be worried about catching fish. You should just try to learn to navigate and just understand, keep your nose south and your head up. That way you can look for what's coming. And it's very important to keep your paddle on your lap. You definitely aren't going to have a pedal drive out there. You're going to lose it the first time if you're in the shallows. And a lot of people go for the shallows because it's where the boats can't go.
Right.
So just make sure that keep your nose south and you know what's going on, and at least get comfortable with bumping rocks before you start throwing that rod around and getting excited about catching a big fish. You don't want the forbidden plunge, and then next thing you know, you're washed down to the bay.
Yeah, no. So that definitely, I think, safety has to be at the top of your list on any trip, but especially when you're just getting to learn. So and it goes without saying, wear your PFD, especially if you're new. They're really, I mean, it's a necessity. It's not even a question, really. So
Sure. And there are laws and you can follow them, but safety first, right? I've been known to not wear mine, and you see pictures of me, but it's never usually in the river. I've made mistakes before, and mine comes on and off too easily. So I would encourage everybody to go buy a nice one so you're comfortable wearing it, and don't. There's no reason to be real brave. Bad habits aren't good habits, and good habits are. So, good habits can be bad as well. So,
Right. All right, Don. Well, that was a lot of great information. I know you mentioned you still have a lot of content. Is there any place that people can find that, or is it pretty much you kind of have it and could give it out if requested?
I have it on my person. If you need me to send you something, I will. I don't have anything really published anymore.
Okay.
If you Google Don Goff fishing, you'll probably find a lot of stuff just on Google, just because I did it for so long. It was about 8 years. So you'll see pictures of me at the bottom of the dam with 50-pound catfish. You'll see pictures of me in the kayak without my life vest on. You'll see you'll see all kinds of stuff.
I did find a few of your videos with Toast. We've had him on the show before too, and definitely a good guy. But when I was searching for you prior to when I was looking around just to see what I could find, I found a few videos of you with him. So that was cool. Yep.
Yeah, I've been on a couple of other people's content. I've definitely been on. I had a radio show on 105.7 The Fan on Saturdays. So I've got a lot of radio footage. There's a lot out there on the internet, with my name attached to it, but I don't harbor, any personal content area that you could view anymore. It's all for me. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. At least I know where to find the source of it, and if I need to. So.
Yeah, I'd be happy to give you whatever you need. I got hours and hours and hours and hours.
All right, Don. Well, is there anything else you'd want to share? Or are you good to go? I mean, I wanted to just give you a chance to shout out anything and everything, even if it's your personal business, if you just wanted to get that out there. So
I just wish you the best of luck. I hope I helped you. It's been my pleasure to talk with you. It was interesting to kind of relive that, but no, I don't have anything to share, and just looking forward to getting up and working hard tomorrow and making some more money, and hopefully that'll afford me maybe some fishing this weekend.
I'm hoping to get out on the water too. Like I said, I'm starting a new job on Monday, so I took tomorrow off. I had to put my trucks at the shop getting the oil changed. So if I do anything, I'm probably going to be bank fishing. But I'm hoping to sometime this weekend I'm going to get out, but for sure. But again, thank you so much for coming on, Don. I appreciate it. I love your outlook on things, and definitely sometime would love to hit the water with you if we can make that work. But
yeah, of course. Yep. All you need to do is just hit me up and give me a call, and we'll schedule it.
Okay, man. That sounds awesome. So, guys, hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Thanks for listening. This has been Bass Fishing for Noobs here on the Paddle and Fin podcast, where we bring you the techniques, the tricks, and the tips to help you rip more lips. Hope you guys have a good night and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode here on Paddle and Fin. Be sure to drop a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, or smash that subscribe button on any platform you're listening in on. Be sure to check us out on Waypoint TV, waypointtv.com. Make sure you sign up for the Fantasy Kayak Fishing League at paddleandfin.com/fantasy. You could support this show through Patreon, patreon.com/paddleandfin. Don't forget to check out the website, paddleandfin.com. Catch us on YouTube. If you got a question, comment, or want to see a future guest on the show, be sure to email us at paddleandfin@gmail.com. Shout out to our show supporters, Yak Gadget. You can check out all the fine kayak accessories at yakgadget.com. Pelican Professional. For all your cases, coolers, and lighting needs, go to pelican.com. Rocktown Adventures. your Midwest premier paddle sports destination, go to rocktownadventures.com. Eastport Marina, the beautiful destination on Dale Hollow Lake. If you're looking for lodging, kayaks, kayak accessories, or anything fishing related on the beautiful Dale Hollow Lake, go to eastport.info. And Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and fill your tackle boxes today.